If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This message comes from Greenlight. Ready to start talking to your kids about financial literacy? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app that teaches kids and teens how to earn, save, spend wisely, and invest with your guardrails in place. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Join millions of parents and kids building healthy financial habits together on Greenlight. Get started risk-free at greenlight.com/audio.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting if you email me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. Now, our guest today, fascinating guy. We've been talking 20 minutes off the air, so we're going to have a good time on the air. Eric Walberg. You can find him at ericwalberg.com. He's written many books. Let's see here. One is Postmodern Imperialism, Geopolitics and the Great Games, The Canada-Israel Nexus, Islamic Resistance to Imperialism, and From Postmodernism to Post-Secularism, Reemerging Islamic Civilization. Now, he's being so generous. He says if you go to ericwalberg.com and contact him directly, send him an email, he's going to send you these books for free via PDF. Just don't go spreading them all over the world. Mr. Eric Walberg, are you there?
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, first of all. Can you tell the audience about yourself? Who is Eric Walberg?
Well, I was born and raised on a farm and then in a small town, Guelph, near Toronto. So that's a very important formative part of my life, I think. And then I went to University of Toronto and on to Cambridge University in England. And then I became more, this is mid-70s, so this is the height of our anti-imperialism, of the bit of socialism that was coming from the post-war period. That was, I would say, the height of our civilization, really. So I was very active looking to make this into socialism, because it was, and there was something across the water called the Soviet Union that I didn't really know much about, but being an analyst and an economics student, I delved into that, and I discovered that it was, in fact, a real attempt at socialism. It was problematic, but it was the reason we survived World War II without fascism. That alone made it very important to me. And my birthday is June 22nd, 1951. Now, what happened on June 22nd, 1941? Can I ask you, Ed? Do you know?
The only thing I know about June 20th, I had two girlfriends on June 20th. And I know they're both Geminis. That's all I know about it. What happened?
Really? So no one, if I tell a Russian that, their face drops and they say, oh, that June 22nd, that's when Hitler attacked Russia. Soviet Union. That was the beginning, the real beginning of World War II. You know, there's play acting in 1939, and there was this, and then there was the real war started. So that I don't know. I fantasize that perhaps I'm a reincarnation of a Russian soldier that died heroically. I'd like to think of that in this defense and the fight against fascism. So that was quite formative. And also Cambridge, because Cambridge is the home of the great spies. Excuse me, Tim Philby, many, which culminates in Aldrich Ames, who was, I think, after Philby, the next. I would put him number 2 on my pantheon of anti-fascist, anti-imperialist heroes. So, although he's more problematic than Philby. We'll get into this.
Yeah, that's how I found you, from an article in Covert Action magazine called "Aldrich Ames will go down in history as a traitor who spied for the Soviet Union during the Cold War." And in that article, you compare Aldrich Ames to Philip Agee. Is that who you're talking about, Philip Agee?
Well, okay. This is my original, which you'll find at my site, is Aldrich Ames, the Perfect Spy. All is Truth. That was my title. So, but when I rewrote it for the Covert Action magazine, it was toned down a bit. Some of the, kind of rousing rhetoric was removed. So they're a little bit sterner. Gotcha. They wanted something, not quite so favorable to Ames. Whereas I was being a little. I just admire him greatly for his courage and his ability to survive and to be so articulate. He's really.
I agree, because I read some of the quotes you had of Aldrich Ames. This was a brilliant guy. He was a well-thought guy.
Yes.
Yeah. Before we get into all these articles and your books and stuff like that, you spent some time. You lived in Russia, right?
Yes, I saw the light. You can laugh. When I was studying at Cambridge, I was studying economics, and I was very interested in how you could make socialist economics. Well, of course, Cambridge was the site where all of this activity was going on, talking about how to use science and mathematics to create and statistics. All of this you can really. And now the Soviet Union didn't survive long enough to get the computer in a workable way. And now, if it could have survived, it probably would have been able to clean up its messy, bureaucratic, handwritten version of socialism, and it might have worked. But anyway, that's how I got interested there. So,
how many years did you spend in Russia?
I went to study first at the Moscow University through the Canadian-Soviet Friendship Society. When I came back from Cambridge, I was really eager to. So I looked up in the phone book, and there was USSR. That was the only way I could find any. And it was it's a genuine friendship. They still have friendship organizations. A lot of countries do this just to promote your better understanding. So I worked through them and then went to study at the university there, and that was a real mind-blowing experience in 1979. That's I talk a bit more about that in Postmodern Imperialism, but that really was seminal. I came back, I tore up my Communist Party card, or just kind of, no, it's not really working. But I never lost my belief that it was still the right thing to do to support the anti-imperialist struggle. I mean, it's like today, who is fighting Israel? Only Iran is it's the only country that stands up to the brutal fascism of today. And so, you can't just pick and choose your heroes. If you've got an idea that is really, really important to you, you have to find the people that are also following that same idea. So that's how.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that book, the latest book, the Canada-Israel Nexus?
Yes, Canada-Israel Nexus. Of course, I'm Canadian. I'm from Toronto. So I'm very interested in our history too, but I wanted to see just what the role of Jews was in Canadian history. It's if you look hard, you can find a little picture book that everything's written by, of course, Zionists. Jewish Zionists are the only ones that are allowed to write about Jews in Canada. So I was making a very bold attempt to break through that iron curtain. That you find iron curtains everywhere. So there's one. And I found fascinating, it's incredible material. And the way people were pilloried in the past. Selwyn Smith, he's the most fascinating intellectual of the 19th century Canada. And he realized that Judaism itself, the way it's turning into Zionism already in the late 19th century, and promoting only Jewish secularism, that is undermining the spirituality of course, it was Christian. Of course, before that, it was native. So it was, I don't know if you want to call it natives pagan or whatever, but we had some kind of spirituality. When I was growing up, I went to church, and I always believed in God. I wasn't really convinced by the intricacies of Christianity, the cross and the resurrection and all that, but I knew that we are a spiritual being. So that really was how I was writing the book, not from a secular position, but from someone that sees humanity and Canadians, that we have a spiritual life, and that should be part of our analysis. So, and you look at the Jews, the way they came, they were there right from the start, right in the 18th century, when the Battle of in France or in Quebec City, that when the British took over, there was who was the supplier, the logistics person for the Wolf, for the British Wolf. It was Jews, a rich. I think this would be a Sephardic Jew. And most of the Jews from Britain were more Sephardic, so they came right in the first boat and helped defeat the French. But the French had their own Jewish supplier too. So it's fascinating. It's Mother Courage. You see on both sides the Jews working to finance and help. They're very effective. They're very talented. But where, there's no morality there. It's basically just, it's for us, if you let us stay here, if we can charge interest and open banks and do the trading and all of that, then we're good to go. So that was the kind of pact that was made right from the start. And then through the 19th century, and then, of course, Canada and both Canada and the U.S. had this huge, I think, 4 million Jews came in the late 19th century to the U.S., and I think 1 million came to Canada. And then a lot of them went on to the States because no one really wanted to live in Canada. It's cold, and the U.S. is where all the money is. So we ended up with we have about 1.8% population Jewish, and I think the U.S. has a bit more than that. I'm not. You can look up in my book. I have the stats there. But
let me say, it was this book, that the Canada-Israel nexus, that caused you to go to Iran?
Yes, because basically it's exposing Zionism there in the book, and looking at the how Jews came to Canada. There were the not street sweepers. What do you call them? The hobjobber, with a cart, and the traditional view of collecting old clothes or whatever. And I'm not sure. I've got this. I have to brush up. But that was one of the. Also, there's different elements. It's fascinating that there's different layers of the Jews coming, but basically, it's a group that works, to promote itself as a group, and it's also very important in our own history. We our intellectuals, our doctors, are not so much dentists, but psychiatrists, the lawyers, very much Jewish. not all, but it's very, very strong, and they're very talented. Jews are very talented, and so we benefit. But the problem is when when Jews become like IPAC, and when they become very powerful lobby, and when they latch onto this horrible Zionism that's so destructive and so inhuman. And that's what, if we can get rid of that Zionism, then we can go back to a more normal relationship.
Well, let me ask you this then, because back in the 70s, okay, I was, when there was an option, I was anti-Zionist, because it hadn't grown that big, you know what I mean? But now, what do we do now? Now that just people that their grandparents were born in Israel now, what are we going to do? How to force them to leave? What do we do? Like this other option of blanket carpet bombing Gaza, that's insane as well. But what do we do? People who were born there, their grandparents were born there. What do we do with them now?
We can't count on our governments because they're controlled. Friends of Israel in Britain. We don't have a Friends of Israel in Canada, but all of the parties, all of our three parties are basically Zionist still. And but now the NDP and even the Liberals, they said no on this. We want a ceasefire. So the public opinion. And the camps of the students. I went to visit several times U of T here, and it's just wonderful, the atmosphere there. And there's half of them are Jews. It's wonderful, And they and then a third are half, maybe a quarter are Muslim, and a quarter are whatever. I mean, cause it's hard to say Christian anymore because no one goes to church, So. Jews have an ethnic identity. The non-Jews in Canada there's no real ethnic identity anymore. It's but I don't know if I really care that much. I don't really identify as white anyway, or as non-Jew or Jew. I just I'm really a Muslim now. I think that.
Really?
That's what this genocide has pushed me to. I became Muslim a while ago, but it was Israel and how every day killing Muslims, and these Muslims are praying and they're devout and they're strong and they resist. And to me, that was just so inspiring that I realized that they have a spirituality, and I wanted to team up somehow as much as I can with that. Because to me, that is the whole purpose of life. That we don't want to be stuck in this material morass, killing people. We want to rise above that. So
let me back up a little bit, though. When you were in Russia, though, you became disillusioned with the success of socialism in Russia in '79.
Well, imagine you're younger than I am, but you will remember late in the '70s. This is '79, and this is just. I arrived in Russia 4 months before Afghanistan war broke out. I don't like to call it an invasion because the Russians were invited in by the local communists. They didn't want to go in, but it was such a mess. They were kind of forced to. And so that was, it was just a very shocking thing. And at the same time, they were preparing for the Olympics. And then, of course, the U.S. pulled out of the Olympics and with all of its Western allies. And and I was living in a half-finished Olympic residence, which was surrounded by mud, and I had to climb 10 flights of stairs sometimes, and I got very sick. So, but it was, physical sick. But I had many wonderful moments. I guess I should really go back and really delve and show that there was beauty in all of that. But at the same time, I could see that a lot of people were cynical, disillusioned, angry. Things weren't working. It was, and then Afghanistan, it made things like 10 times worse. It's just like with the Ukraine now, Russia was cut off. The U.S. steals all its foreign reserves. It starts to bomb it, give long-range bombs. The same thing was going on in '79. So So I just came back, and I stayed. I stayed as an activist, as a friend of USSR, because I knew that we have to have peace. And what I did then is I worked on to make a twin city with Canada, with Toronto, Stalingrad, Volgograd, which was Stalingrad in 1942 when we became twin cities. And that was a wonderful experience. That's an unpublished book I wrote, where I researched and saw all the wonderful activities that ordinary people, the cream of Toronto society, the Eatons, all of the Massey Hall. There were, everyone's lauding Russia and the female bomber that killed I don't know how many Nazis. That was a wonderful moment, and I wanted to revive that feeling of friend. And lo and behold, it became something that was acceptable. So this is 1980. So there's a sense of the Cold War's ending. So that opened it up to the present elite of Toronto. A former mayor, John Saul, one of my heroes. He's a socialist, and he really transformed in 1 year Toronto back in the 70s. So he took on the project and went off with his crew of Torontonians to Volgograd, and they wrote articles, and it really was a wonderful moment for promoting peace. So those years in the 80s for me are very very memorable.
So in this article, it's in Covert Action. What do you make of all these CIA who kind of became, I guess you were traitors, whatever you'd call it, and started selling secrets to Russia?
Well, let me just quote a little bit of Ames, and I recommend people the Confessions of a Spy, the real story of Aldrich Ames, or the movie about Ames. Just Google on YouTube, and you'll find the movie free. You can watch it. Just Google Aldrich Ames movie. So let me quote. So these are the incredible quotes that Early, the author, he snuck in his own little bit of spying, and because he was not supposed to talk to Ames, the FBI keepers, they said no. But I don't know how he did it. But maybe when they were just falling asleep and he snuck past them. FBI is doesn't do things. It bungles a lot too. So anyway, he got dozens of hours of interviews. So here, let's start. Who is the greater fool? The man who believes his own lies and spends his nights rationalizing the obvious contradictions in his life, or a man who sees the lies for exactly what they are and uses them for his own purposes? So he's not he's not apologetic for what he did, at least in terms of the spying, because he goes on, but he does say that he was. I stand before many of my former friends and colleagues and bosses I hide my face. I betrayed the personal and professional trust that existed between me and them, and I betrayed the deep commitment that I had made to agents who trusted me. So his own colleagues, of course, he felt badly. I mean, he's not a total psychopath. But unlike Philip Agee, who went to the press as a whistleblower, Ames says, "Hey, I might as well get paid for this, right?" Exactly. Yeah. You can't blame him. So, and so he's not an angel by any, but none of us are angels. And I know myself, if I'd been in it, I don't think I wouldn't have bothered with the money. I don't think I'm too idealistic, but I would have been happy. I like my heroes are a hero, someone I could identify with personally is Boyce, this wonderful, the Birdman. If you know of the Australian fellow, and this is back in the I believe there's so many dates now, but I believe this is early 80s when when the CIA made a coup in Australia against the more socialistic prime minister, and he got the Attorney General, Canadian, Australian. We have the British monarch. So if you want to get around the government, you appeal to the Lieutenant General. I believe you still have Lieutenant Generals in the States, but they're all useless anyway, except if you want to go to the King. And so that's what the Attorney General did. Kerr, he said he basically dismissed the Labour leader and the coup, and basically took over. And when Boyce saw this, and he's a young socialist, and he was furious. He decided that he was going to gather up everything he could find and take it to the Soviet embassy in Mexico. So he and his druggy friend Lee, the two of them, went on a wild chase and finally got through. Very difficult. Another nail-biting episode. And they gave all these huge amount of documents. And I guess they got some, I don't know the money. And with Boyce, I don't think it mattered because he was eventually captured and he was brutalized in prison by, this young, handsome, blonde-haired boy in a prison full of thugs who God knows what horrors he saw. But he survived, and that's another great movie for you movie buffs. The Birdman, if you just Google Boyce, Birdman.
Well, with Christopher Boyce, the good movie is The Falcon and the Snowman. It's the one that's the classic with Sean Penn. But there's another one called The Birdman?
No. You're right. It's The Falcon.
Now, what's very interesting about Christopher Boyce? Because, the idea is that he intercepted the top secret satellite communications for the National Reconnaissance Organization. But do you know who he worked for? Do you know who employed him?
Oh, he worked for the CIA, did he?
No, look it up. Go to his Wikipedia page. It was TRW, the credit reporting agency that has access to this top secret communication satellites.
Okay, yeah, so it's a money thing that has access to the satellites. So isn't that interesting? How you can't keep your secrets if your whole society's built on money, you're going to lose.
But just think too, if TRW has access to these satellite communications, the top secret, that also means that NRO and CIA has access to all of our credit information. It's the same people. Yeah.
No, and actually, you mentioned.
By the way, I interviewed Christopher Boyce's wife, and also.
Wow!
Oh yeah, great. I'm trying to get Christopher Boyce on the show, but he's very difficult.
Oh, yeah, please.
And the guy Vince Font, who wrote the first book about it, and then I interviewed his wife, so I've done a couple of shows on this. His escape from that prison is very interesting, too. Supposedly he shimmies over a fence and he crawls through this ditch and he makes it to the woods, and he lives in the woods for something like 3 weeks with no shower, no comb to comb his hair, no toilet paper, no food, no water. And he walks out of there, and allegedly he hitchhikes a ride out of there. So I don't know. He had to have had help with that prison escape, which I think almost every prison escape has help.
Well, and on that movie, you mentioned Sean Penn, my least favorite Hollywood actor. Now, the one I like in that is Hutton. Yeah. He is actually, it's Hutton that plays Boyce, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the guy who plays Sean Penn, the guy who Sean Penn played.
Yeah, Sean Penn.
Later on, went to work for Sean Penn. He became his assistant. Did you know that?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's a crazy story.
So that the Hutton in the Falcon film, it's like the prequel to the Christopher Ames film. Aldrich Ames film, which is Christopher Hutton playing Aldrich Ames. So it's wonderful. It's like you could call it a two-part film. Spy. Hutton's spy film.
Yeah.
and he's great in both of them, really. So.
And then who else do you talk about? You talk about Snowden?
Oh, yeah, okay. Before we get to him, I wanted to just finish up with Ames. That what really I loved reading it was I came across his what's the expression? His rosebud. Oh, yeah. Which was he tells Early in one of the long interviews. He said, like Early asked, why did you start this? What was it in your past that brought you to do this? And he said, well, I remember back in the early 50s, my father, who was working for the CIA, he told me, I would rather see you dead than living under communism. And this is, you tell a 10-year-old boy that. Now, what's the little boy going to think? What Ames thought was, this is wrong. This is a denial of humanity to all of those hundreds of millions of people, that somehow they're all wrong and they should be wiped out. So that stuck in his mind. And when he came to the real, and then of course he's CIA father, son, he starts into the CIA. He was a lousy agent right from the start, except for his father. And his father was a weird agent. It's a fascinating story. I recommend you to read it, because he makes all sorts of mistakes, but he's still promoted. And then he finally, it clicks by 85. He realizes, this is the Cold War's over. This is Gorbachev, and he realizes that he says to Cherkeshin, his handler, he says, we're almost allies now. I'm not really a spy. What a wonderful self-justification. And I should look it up.
Wait, I think it's in front of me. Oh, I got it here. Oleg. No, not Oleg Gordikovsky. No, wait. Anyway,
I'll find it. Just a second.
Okay.
Cherkashin. So Cherkashin is interviewed later by Early in writing his book, and Cherkashin says he did nothing wrong. He just helped us survive. Basically, we were always. So he was always being invaded, attacked, undermined. He was a very fine fellow. So that, the Soviets, they respected him. They didn't see him as just a, often if you act, if you're a traitor, then the other side, it's like Judas, pieces of eight or whatever, that you're a cheap nothing if you spy. But no, the Soviets, they actually had their spies. There's another wonderful spy that defected to the U.S. and then he wanted to marry the wife of the Soviet ambassador in Canada. This is very weird. It's Yurchenko. He defected to Italy. It was rushed to the U.S. for debriefing in '85. He was debriefed by Ames, who he could have exposed, but because Ames was interviewing him, somehow that got bypassed. This Ames was incredible to live on that edge of sanity.
Yeah, just to clarify for the audience, what he's saying is when this guy defected from Russia, he recognized Ames as being a turncoat himself. But you can imagine him sitting in the room staring at each other.
Well, but he didn't. Well, he didn't. I don't know if he sort of half knew. He wasn't sure. I don't think he had anything to write, but because anyway, he wasn't able to get at Ames. And what happened to this Yurchenko, the CIA? Okay, so you got this man. He told them couple of names of spies, but not Ames's name. He didn't really have that down cold. So the CIA, but he gave them the names on the understanding that the CIA would spirit him into Canada to Ottawa so he could confront the wife of the ambassador and smuggle her back. This guy was, when you're in love, you do like really stupid things. So,
then it turns out she wants no part of him,
Yeah, he said, "Get out of here! What are you doing, you idiot?" We had a nice little fling. Why can't you just accept life the way it goes? So he was taken back to the U.S. He was depressed, and he went. Even though he's given $1 million and given a medal and a nice place and he went to the Soviet embassy in Washington and redefected.
Yeah,
and he was left alone. He was kind of pitied. This is kind of, you jerk, what are you doing? But by 85, this is Gorbachev, and already the Soviet Union's collapsing, things were going crazy, so he just laid low, and lo and behold, Putin comes to power, and he gives this Yurchenko a gold star, and refashions his whole spy episode as an infiltration of the U.S., some kind of, I don't know what the term they used, but some kind of sneaky infiltration and then to go back. So then because they like to have Western spies. I was always treated when I lived there. People loved the fact that you're a Westerner and you don't hate us. Oh wow, that's neat. So in a way, I've lived in. People say, "Why do you go to these horrible places to live?" Egypt, Russia, Iran. People, I feel like an ambassador, but without all the hassle of being a real ambassador, which is lies, spying.
Well, Mr. Walberg, did you travel by yourself? You had a wife, a family?
No, I'm single. I'm a bachelor. That's my life. I never found a family. That's a great sadness to me, but I don't
sometimes
think
you're
I
better
would
off.
have had my life.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have had my life if I'd been, with a family. My head's up in the air. So
now, what about Ames uncovered some treason by Henry Kissinger?
Oh, that's just these beautiful little episodes.
Yeah.
Kissinger was a spy. He's incredible. He was really angry when Jimmy Carter came to power, or whatever you want to call it in U.S. Because Carter didn't want Kissinger. He got this. Who was his? You're American. Please fill me.
Cyrus Vance. Cy Vance.
It was Vance.
Right. Who, by the way, is the father? Who's the father of the prosecutor in New York who lets everybody go? It's the same Cy Vance family. He's
not the father of the Vance vice president, Trump.
Oh, no, not J.D. Vance. No, the prosecutor in New York who let Trump get away with for years is Cy Vance Jr.
Okay, so Vance and I don't know who else were doing the negotiations. They were deep into the SALT talks. This is in the 80s. The only good thing that Reagan did was to sign this no long-range missiles in Europe and get rid of all the long-range missiles. So they were right in the middle of the talks, election. So what does Carter do? He appoints a new negotiator. And the Soviets hate that. They want the stability. They're used to, people being in their place, knowing things, people you can befriend. They were friends, quote-unquote friends of Kissinger. Kissinger, of course, he loved schmoozing with everybody. So when Kissinger was dumped by Carter, he told his friend, Ambassador Dobrynin, all the inside details of the SALT talks, what the U.S. wanted, what they were thinking the Soviets wanted, He basically spied and tried to undermine the talks, hoping presumably that he would come back into Secretary of State and he could finish and be the glorious bringer of peace, Kissinger's peace. Well, that didn't work very well. So I think that's what you were referring to.
Yeah, definitely. Very funny story. He gives his friend O'Brien advice on how to negotiate. against his own country. I got to tell you, I can't resist. I got to tell you this. I've had a guest on the show here, Monique, and her radio show is called Radio Gunk. She does a radio show about the Howard Stern show and all the gossip and the foolishness of Howard Stern. And it turns out she was friends with Henry Kissinger. She was neighbors with Henry Kissinger. They used to walk their dog together every day for 10 years.
Wow.
I know, man. I don't know how you could be friends with Henry Kissinger. It's like living next door to Hitler, Oh, my God. Well, what do you think is the next big, I don't want to say funniest, but the next most interesting story of these spies? Hansen, perhaps?
Hansen, another incredible spy. And it's interesting. Hansen and Walker are the two that I like to pose together. Hansen, I don't know all the details of what he spied, but it was serious stuff, and he did it for quite I think about 10 years. And he had a family of 6 kids. He was a devout Catholic.
Right.
He wanted to bring his kids up well, and he saw that it was all a game. So he, I don't know, a few $1 million before they finally caught him. And that was the only spy that the FBI caught by one of their agents. All the spies that were ever caught by the CIA or the FBI were by defectors from the Soviet Union that exposed that guy's a spy, so they did nothing. All those years, all those thousands of agents running around, dropping things here and there, poisoning this, and they were totally ineffectual. So that's Hansen. No, wait, that's Hansen, the only one they caught. And he was a father of 6, and of course he was sent away, but at least his family was. Well, I don't know how much they had to pay. I don't know what happens to these people. Maybe they're turned into dumped on the street and left with nothing. I don't know, but that was Hansen, and Walker is like the archetypal kind of scummy kind of spy that he was basically blackmailed into joining the army in the 50s. He was a thug and a thief. And he's given a choice. You go to jail or you go into the army. So what would you choose? I think the army, least of the lesser of two evils. And he just kept quiet and rose a little bit more, got to the point where he had some secrets and started selling them. And he included his son into this too, and his wife, and this went on for the longest time, and he was finally exposed. And it's not right to have your son. I think that just shows you that he was not really a. You sacrifice yourself, but you don't sacrifice your family. And at least Ames, he had his new wife and child, but he did everything to. He didn't tell her, but then she finally found out, and then she was put in jail too. But he plead bargained to get her out. I think she only spent. I don't know. You have to check, but it was not a long. I think it was maybe a few months, and she was out. And I guess she went back to Colombia and just licked her wounds. She's probably still alive too. It would be interesting to hear her side, but I doubt that she would want to. But another thing, when I look at all of these spies, the Cold War was the height of the spying, and that's when the heroes, no one is interested in people that exposing the Soviets is not really. It's neither romantic nor it doesn't contribute to world peace or any kind of undermining of imperialism. The American spies are to promote American imperialism, whereas the Soviet spies were promoting people like me. I've never been a spy, as far as I know, but I would do anything to help promote peace and to undermine imperialism. That's like that whole era suddenly collapsed in 91, And for a while, for a few years, it looked like it was all over. But then you've got the new spies, people like Bergdahl. I mean, another wonderful guy. He defected to the Taliban, and I think he did it intentionally to keep the U.S. Army busy looking for him. They spent 5 years. They were looking for him every day. Can you? I mean, they hate him in the U.S. Trump wanted to. He was eventually discharged, and just get out of our sight. Yeah. But Trump wanted to reinstate his conviction and put him back in jail.
Mr. Walberg, did you take a look at something like Reality Winner?
Oh, and Reality. Wait, is she the one that? Yeah, I have. She tried to. She was exposing Russia. That supposedly the Russiagate.
Right. She was exposing. She worked for an NSA type. She had a security clearance. She worked for a private company, but she had a security clearance with the NSA, and she had some documents. I think she sent it to Glenn Greenwald from. Is that the Intercept he was from? No, whatever he was from. And then they went to. She sent it to him on a disc, and then they discovered on the disc they were able to trace it back. She put the disc in the post office box right next to her gym that she goes to every day. So she wasn't. I interviewed her mother too. She wasn't trying to hide her tracks. And by the way, right now too, she's on supervised release. She's out of prison, but she's not allowed to do interviews as part of her probation.
But she was just trying to expose some nonsense about Russiagate, which was false. Wasn't what she was trying to expose false anyway?
Well, I don't know if it was false. It was Russian interference in the U.S. elections, okay? And what about this fellow?
There was no Russian interference.
You don't think so? I think there was.
No, it was all... Trump was cleared as far as I could tell from the... I didn't follow it because I figured it was just nonsense.
Well, the Mueller report said if we could clear him, we would have, and we can't clear him. And also, too, I was just staring here, too, at Charles McGonigal, the FBI agent in New York who was in charge of the Trump-Russia investigation. Did you look into him? Because he was just arrested. He only got 4 years for working for Oleg Deripaska. So he's charged with... I know, he's charged with... what do you call it? Investigating Russian interference with Trump, and he's getting paid by the guy.
It's to me that's all just parody. There's
I know, it's all a game, yeah.
And that kind of spine. It's just it's a new version of the spy game where you say, oh, Russia, Russia's interfering in our elections, which is really nonsense. I mean, maybe there's some kind of hacking, but people are intelligent. They don't. This idea that somehow Russia can warp American minds, that's nonsense. It's a revival of this whole Soviet threat that somehow Reds under your bed, your children will become communists. No, they won't unless they realize just what a monstrous imperialism they're living under, and maybe they try and fight it, but to me that it makes them heroes. They're not bad people for doing that. And this Russiagate has nothing. It's just it was to try to incite more anti-Russian sentiment so that the U.S. can go and attack Russia, which is what it's doing now, to try and divide it up and take over all of those wonderful resources, all that oil and gas and gold. That's what the U.S. wants. So I don't put any charge. And then you've got that Snowden. I mean, Snowden is another wonderful, and he sees this, and the idea of Russiagate. Russia is a hero if it accepts Snowden and protects him from U.S. wrath. To me, that should be a good sign for people that if you hate Russia, you're hating the wrong side.
And the audience should know, Snowden, National Security Agency, was stationed at the University of Maryland, which is a National Security Agency facility, okay? Just Google it, look it up. So anybody goes to the UMD computer classes over there taking computer security, you know who they're working for, okay? Just to tell you guys. Now, real quick, though, because we only got a couple of minutes. Your story about, you said you were treated badly at the border when you tried to come into the United States?
Oh, yes. So, okay, I love Russia. I love the Soviet Union. It's still in my heart. And Iran is the only country that's supporting Israel. I mean, that should be clear to anybody. And I realized that. And when I wrote my Canada-Israel Nexus, and I was doing interviews on Press TV too. They're very open. They don't censor me. They're very, very nice people. They've got good hearts. They're fighting imperialism. So one of the people that I met at the conference, the anti-Zionist conference in Tehran, he decided he wanted to publish my book, Canada-Israel Nexus, in Persian. So he had it translated into Persian, which is, I've only one other book. My first book was published in Turkish, and this one in Persian. And so that was really nice. And so I went back to for a book launch in Tehran. And then when I tried to go across the border at Niagara Falls to visit my cousin and to go biking in northern New York, I was brutalized at the border. I just came out a wreck. They had me. They did a little mini Guantanamo, ice cold room. No, you don't know who you're talking to. They come back and forth. Good guy, bad guy, asking me why was I going to mosques in Cairo. What did I think of? I don't know. They were asking me, what did I think of Islam? And this is so obscene. I can't describe it. So they did dump me back in Canada, but now I'm afraid. I'm afraid to travel really, because the U.S. controls all borders, and if they decide you're a terrorist, you never get off that list. And there's thousands, hundreds of thousands, I think, of Canadians alone that are in that position, that are turned back at the border for thumbing their nose at Uncle Sam in some way. So that's my sad little episode.
Okay, so don't forget, we've been talking to Eric Walberg. You go to ericwalberg.com, and if you send him a nice, polite email, he's going to send you any of these books you want, okay, on a PDF for free. Otherwise, go to Amazon, support the work. But Eric Walberg, we are out of time. Thank you so much. ericwalberg.com. You can find him on Twitter, too, as well, Eric Walberg. And once again, free books at the PDF there.
Thanks, Ed. It was a delight to talk with you.
It really was. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.